What up, Fight fans? I'm Marisol Moranes. Today we're going to be talking about Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic and what exactly went down, why it went that way for Daniel Cormier, and what could possibly be next for the former champion. So congratulations to Stipe Miocic for becoming again the heavyweight champion of the UFC, and he did so in spectacular fashion via knockout in the 4th round. This was interesting in the fact that Daniel Cormier was pretty much set to win this fight. He was the victor on the scorecards, and he was looking pretty good, especially in the first couple of rounds. He kept throwing a lot of great punches, kept tagging Stipe with that right hand, but couldn't quite get that knockout punch, which it did seem he was looking for, but it just wasn't happening. And he did wrestle a bit during the first round, but after that, that did seem to kind of go to the wayside. And one thing that did kind of tip me off that perhaps this was not going in the best direction for Cormier was the fact that he kept putting his hands down. That is a fundamental thing to do as a fighter, to always protect yourself even when you're going in for the punches and you're being more on the offensive. He wasn't doing that, and perhaps that was due to the fact that, as he had previously mentioned, Stipe just didn't really have much power behind his punches, so he probably felt like he was safe. But even then, you never want to underestimate your opponent, as we witnessed last night. They can always get the win. It's the fight game. You never know what can happen. But be that as it may, he did keep his hands down even after his corner implored him to keep his hands up. And with that, he also did not listen to his corner when they asked him to continue wrestling, to bring that more into his game plan, into what he was doing in the octagon, to stick to his game plan essentially. And as he said in a post-fight interview, he didn't do that. He didn't listen to his corner. He did say in that interview that he started to fall in love with the striking, and that's one of the reasons why he chose to not listen to his corner and to continue on with a striking bout instead of taking it to the ground, which would have been his pathway to victory. He did chalk it up to the fact that he said he was falling in love with the striking and that he really liked the visuals of it. They sort of kind of put him in that state of mind of, this is where I'm causing damage, let me just stick with this strategy. I could see how that makes sense. And with the visuals of it, it's so much different from a grappling match. When it comes to striking, you can see the damage you're causing. You can see that somebody's getting tagged, somebody has a black eye, somebody's bleeding perhaps. But when it comes to grappling, you don't have that. You might be dominating and then something might get reversed. Or you might be dominating, but they're still putting up a fight, so you don't really seem to be moving anywhere until you finally get that one thing, you finally get the hook or what have you, and get the submission, get the choke. But it's not a visual win in that regard, unless maybe somebody doesn't tap in, like you break their arm or something, but people usually tap. But again, it's not as visual as, say, the damage being caused via striking. So I can see how somebody could fall in love with the instant gratification of a striking match and how they might believe that it is their pathway to victory, even though it would be more efficient and wise to take it to the ground, which would have been the case for Daniel Cormier. He's an Olympic wrestler. It makes sense to use your wrestling, especially against a fighter like Stipe, who is more striking heavy. So now that Stipe Miocic is the new heavyweight champion, what exactly comes next for Daniel Cormier? Because he put so much into this, into being a double champ, using that clout to potentially fight Jon Jones again. Even though if you would have seen my Instagram TV, then you would know that I don't think the fight's going to happen. It just doesn't seem realistic at this time. But you can always go check that out if you want to see why I think that is. But for Daniel Cormier, he was using that essentially to bolster his fighting options. But at this point, I think it makes the most sense for him to retire. Not only has he already been talking about retirement, he did so a year ago when he first fought Stipe. He did say that he was thinking of retiring by the time he turned 40, which was back in March. Clearly that did not happen. He has been fighting since then. But it's still something that has been on his mind. And most recently, he has been talking about the money he makes outside of fighting, outside of the octagon. With those two things, we already clearly have somebody who is looking at other options, looking how they can build a life outside of the octagon. And once you have that, you're not fully committed to the fight game. That's what this signifies. He has 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And when it comes to fighting, if you're not all in, it's so much easier to lose focus, to not train as hard, and to just begin to lose. So given that it seems like Daniel Cormier is at this point where he has other things going on outside of the octagon that are taking his focus and that are providing him with much more income, it would make sense for him to retire and to continue down on that path, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. He's a fantastic commentator. So I think it would be great to see him doing more of that anyway. But there has already been talk of a rematch between the two of them to see who gets the best 2 out of 3. And if that were to happen, of course, I would be watching that fight just like everyone else. But in terms of how excited I am to see that fight, I'm not. I wasn't really all that excited to see this rematch anyway. So if they run it back again, I'm going to watch it. Let's be real, I'm going to watch it. But is it something that I'm like, oh my God, I need to see this fight? No. Although I do think that Daniel Cormier is intelligent enough to learn from his mistakes and to stick with his game plan, to use more wrestling in the third one. So I do think it's possible for him to win a rematch with Stipe if they were to run it back again. But ultimately, I think the wisest choice is to simply retire. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. What did you think of the fight? Do you think Daniel Cormier should retire? And who do you think Stipe should fight next? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to share this video and to subscribe for more content. I'll be seeing you in the next one.